The Olympic Games brings the greatest athletes throughout the world together. But it's not just about the competition. It's about so much more than that. It's about bringing players and fans together from many countries and many walks of life so that they can honor themselves and their country in achieving glory. But it's more than just that. It's about showing sportsmanship. It's about having compassion, showing leadership, and good spirit. Today, we are here at the Pinelands Oval, which is the home of our next guest on Coffee with Craig. So if you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe so you can hear stories from our amazing guests. But this guest is a 3-time Olympian. He has achieved so much inside of sports, but today we're going to be talking about an Olympic dream, what it takes to get to the Olympics, how tough it is, and getting there, not just once, not twice, but 3 times. So if you haven't yet, smash that like button and let's go and meet this week's guest. Austin, thanks for joining us on Coffee with Craig. It's great to have you just after the Tokyo Olympics. Something that I thought is so interesting when I've heard people do interviews after the Olympics, they've always turned around and said, it was my dream to go to the Olympics. For me, it was never my dream to go to the Olympics, but I want to know from you, you haven't just been to 1, you've been to 3 Olympic Games. Is that something that was a big goal or big dream for you?
Definitely. It was a goal that I had, I think, from when I was 11, 12 years old. I was incredibly fortunate to have a primary school teacher by the name of Murray Anderson who had just come back from the 1996 Atlanta Olympic Games as a hockey player. So it was just an incredible stroke of luck. And he was my classroom teacher and he came back with the most incredible stories about being an Olympian, what it meant to participate. And I think it was from about that age that I realized, sure, that's something that I definitely want to be a part of.
After.
Yeah,
sure, that's amazing. So I mean, I was fortunate. Murray was also a coach of mine at one stage.
Okay.
So I know he was a big highlight here in Pinelands. And we are here at your old club fields where it all pretty much began before AstroTurf.
On this very grass.
On this grass.
That's
why you can stop the ball so well now, right? From this bumpy grass. So you had a goal and a dream of one day becoming an Olympian.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit of your journey? Because there was a lot of work that goes into it before actually making it to the Olympics. How did you, once you had that as a dream, how did you start your journey? What did you start doing?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I think that's important was the fact that I actually had a goal. And I see a lot of youngsters who say, hey, how do they get there? So I said, well, yeah, what is your why? Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you go and train when you don't really feel like training? So I think because I had that goal from a young age, it was easy to motivate myself when I didn't really feel like training, or if I didn't really feel like giving my best, I kept on saying, oh, but I want to be an Olympian like Murray one day, I want to get to the Olympics, how can I do that? So I think that really set the fire inside me to really go out at every training session to give it my absolute all. It wasn't like when I was 13 that I just played hockey 24/7. I played lots of other sports as well. So I still think it's good to have that balance and to specialize when you're a little bit later. But I think the biggest tip that I could give to a youngster if they end up in my situation is to really make a goal, whatever it is what you want to achieve, and then just go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So now, for me, sports it's an interesting game, and this is a team sport. Hockey, going to the Olympics for hockey. It's not like you're a swimmer or a runner. You have to be in a team dynamic.
Yeah.
Were you always in the A team all the way through the age groups? Did you have any hardships, ever get dropped from any teams along the way?
It was pretty smooth sailing at a younger age. I mean, I made the SA under 16 and under 18 teams 2 years in a row. So the first time I made it was when I was a year young. But in some ways, I feel like that added to the pressure because if you've made it the year before, then you feel, wow, I've got to really make it the next year as well. So I think that added a lot more pressure and that made me train even harder. Definitely when we got to the seniors though, because I made my debut in 2004.
For the SA men's team?
For the SA men's team. And then I don't think I played again for about another year and a half after that. I thought I'd made some good steps and I'd done what the coach had told me to do, and I went overseas and I came back ready for 2006, the World Cup, the Commonwealth Games, and I got left out of both of those, and I was really gutted.
So your first major disappointment was once you'd already made the SA team?
Yeah, so often people think, oh, you've made it now, But making your debut and playing one test doesn't mean that you're going to play forever. I mean, the coach at the time, Paul Revington, gave me a cap, and it was a 3-match series. I played the first 2 games. I didn't even play the 3rd game because he said, "Okay, Ozzy, this is a step too far for you at the moment." You know, so that's why he advised me to play overseas. And after having done that for 6 months, I thought, well, yeah, now I've done what he said, and I've earned my right to play. But that wasn't that wasn't the case.
Okay. So I mean, that was the first time you had to deal with maybe the mental side of the game, being dropped.
Yeah.
How have you coped along your journey from a mental side of things? How have you made sure that you're not only talented on the field, but what's between the ears?
Well, yeah, again, going back to the idea of having a goal, because most of the time, I don't think you train anywhere near as hard as you physically can actually train. I think most of the time when we're out there as humans, as soon as something becomes difficult, when you're running, when you're in the gym, it's super easy to say, oh, this doesn't feel comfortable anymore, and you stop the training session early, or you don't bother going out because it's raining. So I think for me, I learned a lot about myself, especially when I went overseas on my own. I was over there, no one knew what I was doing. No one knew if I was training as hard as I should be. No one knew if I was doing the gym correctly. No one knew what I was eating. No one knew if I was studying, because I had to study at the same time at that point. So you
had to be incredibly disciplined to do that.
Yeah, disciplined and organized. But I kept on thinking, whenever I didn't want to train, I kept on thinking, but yeah, what is my end goal? My end goal is to become an Olympian, to achieve that goal. And so then, yeah, you have to be able to get out when it's raining. You have to be able to. I had this idea of training. Every time I was on the field, I was training as if my coach was standing right there next to me, watching me train. Because I think we all know how we train when the coach is there looking at us, and when he turns his back, there's a very different pushing and stopping element.
And at that stage, how old were you?
20 years old.
So you're still relatively young. You're now overseas by yourself. Your parents weren't there.
No.
Your parents were here. No coach watching you, by yourself. And that was the first time you almost had to be a proper adult.
Yeah.
Like, exactly like you're saying. Go and train when you don't want to. Make sure you're eating the right types of foods, being disciplined.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not easy for a 20-year-old. But I think that's where that goal comes into it. That's so important to go, why am I doing this? Why am I getting out of bed? Why am I doing my core, my push-ups, all those things along the way?
Absolutely. I think that also gives you even more energy and more pride. The fact that you have done this session. I can remember training, for example, on New Year's Eve. I thought, well, if I want to go and have a good night this evening with my mates.
Everyone else is out partying and drinking.
Well, we hadn't got to that stage yet. It was New Year's afternoon. New Year's afternoon. And I can remember thinking I was in England, it was terrible weather, and I was going to see literally two friends later that evening. I thought, well, if I want to have fun and celebrate New Year's, then I've also got to train this evening. But I had this amazing sense of accomplishment because I had done something that probably no one else was doing at that stage. So it gives you confidence, think, okay, I'm one session up on everyone else at the moment because no one else was training on New Year's afternoon. And in the terrible weather, if you manage to get through those moments, I think you are so much mentally stronger for it. So I definitely think putting yourselves in those difficult situations is definitely advantageous.
And now being overseas by yourself, did you have good support back home, friends, family? I mean, that's something that a lot of sportsmen speak about. The people that supported them when sometimes they might not have even thought they had what it took to become an Olympian. Yeah,
I think having a support network around you, and not only people who are going to give you the information that maybe you like to hear, that when you've played a bad game, that you also get some honest feedback saying, yeah, Austin, that wasn't your best, what happened, can we support you in any way? And let's be honest, we don't always play good games, so it's no point just giving compliments. So I think I was really lucky that I had a very honest father. Okay. He gave me good, honest feedback. He was always there to support me, as was my mum, but they also, if they saw me doing things that they weren't proud of, they weren't afraid to say, Austin, that wasn't like you. We didn't enjoy seeing that bit of behavior, because I do live on the edge with regards to the umpire sometimes. Okay,
so I mean, your dad was my manager of my club team at certain stages, so I've known him well. And on one of my previous episodes of Coffee with Craig, I had my father talk a little bit about hockey. I mean, was your dad a big role model for you in your career?
To some extent, yes. I think definitely the way that my dad carried himself on the sports field. I can remember watching him as a youngster, and he was always out there with a smile on his face. He always had some chirps. I'd like to think my chirps are a little bit better than his were, but I think the way that he played the game and the way he was off the pitch is something that I really admired about him for a long time. and I definitely got some of his ability. He played in the England under-23 team before he emigrated to South Africa, so I definitely think I got some.
So there was some talent that was passed on.
Definitely. My mum as well, though. My mum was also a provincial hockey player.
Okay, nice.
And I think between the two of them, they passed on some
good genes.
some wonderful genes. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I want to find out a little bit more about the actual Olympics, about Beijing, which I was fortunate to actually watch here.
Yeah.
Which was great. So a little bit about Beijing, a bit about London, maybe not even Rio, and then Tokyo. So let's go grab some coffee and chat a little bit further.
Let's go.
Cool. So Austin, you've been to 3 very different Olympic Games.
Yeah.
For most people, that first one must have been something really special. What were your thoughts going to Beijing? Was it a difficult road getting to Beijing, getting into the Olympic team, and then being a part of the whole Olympic experience?
It didn't get off to a great start, to be honest. I think the first time we went there for a preparation tournament about 2 months ahead of the Olympics, had some visa issues, and I ended up being deported at the gate. So this is kind of like my first experience on a big trip with the national team. And
so you flew all the way to China?
We'd flown to Dubai, Beijing, and then within about 1 hour I was on a flight back again. And the very next day after landing in Johannesburg, I got the correct visa and then flew straight back again. So the entire week I was traveling. But
okay, and tell me, do you like flying?
I did. After that experience, it made me a little bit less keen to get on a long flight though.
Okay.
But definitely reaching basically my childhood goal of attending the Olympics, and especially walking into the opening ceremony inside the Bird's Nest. I think it was an 80,000 seater stadium. Was something that I'll never forget. Being on TV made it that much special, definitely for my family who were watching at home, and just being at such a big event with all the other famous athletes.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. So I mean, that experience, being there with the US basketball team, Lionel Messi, all those guys, what was that like? Was that the first time you've experienced something like that?
Yeah, it was also pretty strange because you suddenly almost feel like you on a level footing with these other huge names. Obviously, hockey is a lot smaller than some of the high-profile sports, but when you're in the village and you're walking into the dining hall and you kind of brush past someone and say, "Oh, sorry," and you look up and and it's like someone who
like Roger Federer,
or I think at that stage the big tennis player was Anna Kournikova, and like some of these big athletes that you only see on TV, and suddenly you're in the same dining hall with them, and living in the same apartment block. So that made it, I think, even more special.
And then in that Olympic village, food, drinks, everything is just on offer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now tell me about that, because you would have spent, I don't know how many years, but for a lot of people, say 4 years, making it to the Olympics, and you can throw it all away, eating all the food in the Olympic village.
Yeah, no, there are some nightmare stories of boxers who just get overawed by the situation, eat too much, and then don't even end up competing because they don't get into their weight category. But it is something that's a challenge. I mean, for guys who grow up and you are just kind of eating whatever you're given, and suddenly you have this amazing scope of food. Like, they literally have all the different sorts. You've got Asian food, you've got Western food, anything that you want, and it's open 24 hours a day. There's a McDonald's inside the dining hall, and you just literally go up to it and you can order whatever you like. Whatever you want.
Sure.
And there's no payment. All around the
free.
Village there's coffee carts.
So did you indulge before you guys played any games? Did you wait until the Olympics was over before you had your McDonald's?
I would like to say that everyone waited. There were a few mistakes here and there, but I think by and large we saw the kind of the junk food as a reward for a good tournament. And once the job had been done, we thought this would be something fun to indulge in. But no, not until that last game. No.
So that first Olympics, that must have been one hell of an experience. Was it very different to then going to London?
I think it was, definitely for myself, it was a lot different because, in some ways I'd made this mistake of having my goal just to go to the Olympics, where I think if I could have gone back in time, I would make my goal to achieve something really special as a team at the Olympics. I think the mindset of just arriving there, kind of, I'd reached my goal when I went into the opening ceremony, and I'd forgotten to, like, okay, what's going to happen next, you know? So I think the London Olympics, I was a lot better prepared. I knew what to expect. I think as captain of the team, I could help prepare the team a lot better because I knew what was coming. I knew what some of the challenges were going to be in the dining hall, not being overawed by the situation, knowing that every team at the Olympics raises their game by 10-15% and kind of being ready for that. So I think how we performed at the London Olympics was far better than what we did at the Beijing Olympics.
And now this last one in Tokyo, I mean, your performance has improved with each Olympics. You guys got some really good results. You guys beat Germany, which was amazing, so well done.
Thank you.
Preparation-wise, might not have been as good going into this Olympics as previous ones. How was your overall experience in COVID being in Tokyo?
Yeah, I think the fact that the Japanese organizing committee were able to get this Olympics off the ground and actually have it take place was simply incredible. They had the disappointment of not having the Olympics go ahead, and then to organize it within this pandemic was simply incredible. So that took away a lot of the excitement in the village. You couldn't interact with other athletes as easily as before. I mean, a lot of the guys wanted to have photos with other athletes, and that was everyone.
Were you able to do that?
To some extent, but there was kind of this awkward distance and like selfie from 2 meters away because everyone was obviously nervous about. Because at that stage, I think if you had contracted COVID in the village, then you were immediately sent out,
and
isolation, Olympics
no
over.
Sure.
Even if your roommate contracted it. Yeah. So that made it a lot more difficult. And obviously playing in a stadium without spectators.
And do you think that had an impact on your performance or on all the other athletes?
I don't know if it had an impact on the playing performance, definitely from an experience point of view. I'd be really sad for players for a lot of players, I'm sure this will be their only Olympic experience. I mean, it's unlikely that the exact same team will play in the Paris Olympics in 3 years' time. So I think for a lot of players, this is going to be their only Olympic experience. And I don't think it's going to be a true experience of playing with all the spectators, having friends and family at the games. So I think that's a great shame. But the fact that we were able to have this event, I think was incredible. I think it was.
I mean, even
cool
probably a couple of weeks leading up to the Olympics, people were thinking it was going to be cancelled.
Well, they were still talking about like the possibility of the games being called off. So yeah, I'm glad it went ahead.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I was fortunate enough to be there in Beijing to watch you, which was great. Your family was there and some close friends.
Yeah.
And then going to London must have been quite nice because I'm sure there's a lot of South Africans in London that could have popped over to come and watch. How do you feel your performance was at the various Olympics, whether it's Beijing, London or Tokyo?
Yeah, I think London was our best performance and probably the most enjoyable, with the fact that we also had a crowd at the London Olympics that were very knowledgeable about the game of hockey. In Beijing we had a lot of Chinese supporters there. Not all of them had ever seen hockey before, so I can remember sometimes the ball just going into the goal from maybe like the halfway line and people started cheering, you know, like, what's going on here? And then there would be an explanation about some of the rules. So I think playing in London was a lot more special as a hockey player because we had a full stadium of people who understood the game, who cheered when there was a good passing combination. And there are so many South Africans in London, so it was brilliant to have a big contingent supporting us and seeing a lot more green and gold in the stands. And
did you manage to go and watch various other sports?
Yeah, we got to go and see in Beijing. We got to see Usain Bolt win the 200 meters.
That must have been amazing.
We snuck our way in. We didn't have tickets, but we were athletes, so we kind of snuck our way in past security. So that was fortunate. Okay. But to see an event like that live in person was pretty special. In Tokyo recently, we saw the 100 meter women's final. And even without a crowd there, it was pretty special with the way that they dimmed the lights and lit up the 100 meter track to be there in person, to actually see a human being run that fast is really impressive. So those are some of the perks that you have as an Olympian. You get to see other sports as well.
That's been amazing.
Yeah.
And then there was a video that went viral now of our female swimmer.
Yeah.
She was walking into, is it the South African house in the village? Yeah. And the whole South African, whatever sport it was, all came out and supported her, cheered her on, and that must just been so overwhelming for her. It must have been such a special feeling Were you a part of that? Did you
Yeah, we
experience
were.
that?
So Sascock sent out a message saying, look guys, Tatiana's coming home at 5 o'clock. Can we meet downstairs at 10 to 5? And obviously, like the chance to see a South African gold medalist is not something that we have every day, a chance that we have every day. So we all met down there with most of Team South Africa, and we had like people lined up on either side of the walkway into our apartment block. And it was amazing. Like we had to wait quite a while, but we were singing and dancing along. Well, the guys that could dance, not me. And it was brilliant. Like just the South African hears, like everyone coming together to support our gold medalist. I think it was absolutely brilliant. We had done the same for Bianca when she came back with a silver surfing medal, and it was a great moment. You felt really proud to be South African at that moment, and we had a good jol with everyone.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's been such an amazing experience. So now you achieved your goal. You wanted to be an Olympian, and you didn't just do it once, you did it 3 times. If you were to give any advice to someone that was in your shoes when they were 12, 13, 14 years old, how would you help them along their journey to actually become an Olympian one day?
Yeah, well, definitely you've got to be aiming at someone and don't make the mistake of maybe just aiming to attend the Olympics, because maybe you're going to go there as a 100-meter runner.
And you're there for 10 seconds.
You're there for 10 seconds. So enjoy the experience, set your goals high. And I mean, after the Beijing Olympics, I had the goal of like winning an Olympic medal, becoming the best player in the world. Yeah, I didn't achieve any of those, but I still think it was worthwhile to rather set a goal that's slightly higher than what even maybe you think is possible. And yeah, at the end of the day, if you don't reach it, it's not the end of the world. But I think it would be a shame if you set your goals too low and you reach them and you're still a little bit disappointed, like I was at those first Olympics. So I definitely think aim for something and work towards it. And then I think basically every time you're out there on the training field or the court or the pool or whatever it is that you're doing, just give it 100%. It sounds like something really obvious, but having that idea that your coach is watching, that someone's watching you, would they be proud of you with the way that you're training right now? And I think if you train at that level every time, then you've got a good chance of being successful.
Okay, so that's great. Thank you for that. Last thing that I want to ask you, was there anything that stands out for you of any of your 3 experiences at the Olympics? Anything fun, anything funny, experience, different people, different athletes, anything that completely stands out for you?
I love pranking our teammates and our teammate this last tour, just as the fun side, because I still believe that as serious as the Olympics is, you also need to go out there and have some fun. And as long as what you're doing doesn't impact your game and impact your training, then I think we should have as many laughs as we can. And I love pranking some of the junior guys in our team. And the best is if you can prank someone and make them believe that it's someone else, and then you can just sit back and just watch it all unfold in front of you. So some of those moments are special, and I think what we touched on earlier, just rubbing shoulders with some of the other big names in the world of sport, really makes you believe as a humble hockey player that you've achieved something really special, making it to these events. So yeah, I think those are some of the things that really made it special. That's
an awesome achievement. You've done so much in the hockey world. 183 games for South Africa, Olympic Games, World Cups, so many achievements on your journey, which has been incredible. So well done, congrats.
Thanks very much.
So it's awesome to have you here on Coffee with Craig to share your story, and hopefully it will inspire one of the younger people watching this to one day want to follow in your footsteps, like you did with Mary Anderson. So
Absolutely.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us. If you guys haven't yet, make sure to smash that like button. Follow Austin Smith, number 5, my favorite number as well. So that's great that he's number 5. We will see you very soon on the next episode of Coffee with Craig. Until then, we're out of here.